Quiet on the set, please.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take one.
And action!
Welcome to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. If you love old movies, Hollywood history, or the golden age of filmmaking, you've come to the right place. This is the podcast that talks about amazing stories of Tinseltown from another era. Hear fascinating conversations with writer-producer Steve Cubine, who quite literally lives just beneath the Hollywood sign, and actress-writer Nan McNamara. Now your hosts, Steve and Nan.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of From Beneath the Hollywood Sign. We've got a great one for you today. Of course, we are going to be celebrating a Star of the Month for November. And you know, when we think of our beloved classic film stars who are still with us, we tend to think about EVA MARIE SAINT and BLYTH, Kim Novak, Robert Wagner, or maybe even Dick Van Dyke. However, there is one star still amongst us who will be turning 103 in November. Jacqueline White. She was a beautiful, talented actress, and for a brief time in the 1940s, she had a very promising career. In fact, when she was up for the lead role of the mother in the 1946 film The Yearling, she was told by the producers that she was simply too beautiful to portray the simple pioneer woman.
Isn't that sort of like you're too young? If you have to be turned down, isn't too beautiful and too young just the best?
Well, it made me think about poor Jane Wyman who got the role. I mean, it must have made her feel great to know that she was perfectly plain enough.
She was just good as a pioneer woman.
But Jane Wyman gets the last laugh because she did go on to get an Academy Award nomination for the role.
Right. Well, I love that we're highlighting Jacqueline White because she is somebody that people might not know, and that's sort of one of our missions here on the podcast. Jacqueline White was born in Beverly Hills, California on November 27th, 1922. Her parents were Floyd and Gladys White, and her father was once a playwright. I'm sure that
she had it in her genes.
Yeah,
showbiz.
She had it in her genes. She was also a cousin of Frank Knox, who was the Secretary of the Navy under President Franklin Roosevelt during most of World War II. Knox also went on to be a well-respected newspaper publisher. Growing up, White was a childhood friend with another beautiful blonde actress, so maybe this also influenced her, Lynn Merrick.
White attended Beverly Hills High School, and from an early age, she was absolutely fascinated by Hollywood and the film stars that sparkled up on the big screen. So it was no surprise that she began appearing in school plays. And while she was still in high school, she actually won the state and national dramatic championships with her interpretation of a scene from Maxwell Anderson's play Elizabeth the Queen. She continued her dramatic studies at UCLA, where she landed the lead role in the play Wilderness. She was spotted by a talent scout for MGM, as often happens here.
Yep.
And of course, she was given a screen test, and the test was very successful, and she was actually placed under contract with MGM in May of 1942.
So she was only 20 years old.
Yeah, she was a babe.
Yeah.
She was so young.
At MGM, she wasn't given much to do. Her film debut was as an uncredited telephone operator in the film Dr. Gillespie's New Assistant, 1942, which starred Lionel Barrymore as Dr. Gillespie. Newcomer Van Johnson was his assistant. And Susan Peters, who we dedicated an episode to recently, played the young bride with amnesia. That's that film.
I guess if you're in a movie called Dr. Gillespie's New Assistant and you're not the new assistant, you're probably lower on the totem pole.
Right, exactly. Another uncredited role followed in Reunion in France, 1942, with the very odd pairing of Joan Crawford and John Wayne.
Can you imagine the two of them together?
All right, I have to say, I've never seen that film.
I haven't seen it either, and probably because I'm so turned off by that pairing.
Yeah, and that was their only film that they did together.
I think that was the only one they did together, but it's just hard to imagine.
It's really hard to imagine.
Because Jacqueline was underutilized at MGM, and this is really smart of her, she began volunteering to appear in the screen tests of other actors. This gave her a lot more experience in front of the camera, and it allowed her to do scenes with both unknown MGM hopefuls who were trying to get a contract there at the studio, and also established stars, which was really important for her. And in fact, she became known around the studio as the test girl because she was always willing to go and do your test for you.
Well, it kind of reminds me of Lon Chaney Jr. with Of Mice and Men. It had been cast with someone else, Roderick Crawford, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And he said, oh, let me just do the test tests, and then they couldn't see anyone else.
Yeah, when they saw him over and over and over again, he was the guy.
MGM finally gave her a leading role in the Laurel and Hardy comedy Air Raid Wardens, 1943. And she absolutely loved working with the comedy duo. She is quoted as saying of the experience, "They were very nice men. We chatted between takes, but there was no joking around off camera." They were at the end of their careers at this time. When I was a little girl, a friend of mine managed to get us passes, and we saw Laurel and Hardy shoot one of their famous scenes. Then years later, here I was actually making a movie with them. What a thrill that was. They were charming and a delight.
After this, she thought that many more leads would be coming her way. She was wrong.
Yeah.
For her next film, she was cast in a very small, uncredited role in the Anne Southern comedy Three Hearts for Julia in 1943. The one good thing that did come out of this picture was that it reunited her with her childhood friend, Lynn Merrick.
There you go.
Yeah, who also had a small role in the picture. And her next few films were not much better. In Pilot Number 5, also 1943, which starred French Otone, Marcia Hunt, and newcomer Gene Kelly, White was relegated to a very small role of a girl at a party. And that's how she's credited.
Yeah.
Girl at party. Ugh. And in Swing Shift Maisie, also 43, she was 10th billed behind Ann Southern, James Craig, and many, many others.
Yeah.
And in A Guy Named Joe, also 43, with Spencer Tracy, Irene Dunn, and Van Johnson, if you blinked, you missed her.
Yeah. It's amazing because she's now been at it a couple of years
Yeah.
and to not have had
Under
anything.
contract and just
Right.
not being used well.
Well, MGM did finally give her a decent role in the 1944 World War II propaganda film Song of Russia, about an American pianist played by Robert Taylor who tours Russia and falls in love with a beautiful Russian pianist. Again, Susan Peters. So she's in two Susan Peters films.
You can tell they were really promoting Susan Peters around this time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
White plays the sister of Peter's character and the wife of John Hodiak, who's a big favorite on this podcast.
Yes.
The film was a success, and White was hopeful that, again, finally, MGM would give her better parts. But once again, she was disappointed in the follow-up films, which included another uncredited role, in a small one, in the Mervyn LeRoy-directed war drama 30 Seconds Over Tokyo in 1944, starring Spencer Tracy, Van Johnson, again with the Van Johnson, and Robert Walker. And then the role of one of the singing waitresses in The Harvey Girls, 1946, with Judy Garland. So she certainly is surrounded by good people and good directors.
But that must have been so frustrating that, one day you're the lead,
I know.
and then you're an uncredited bit.
Yeah.
Like, and what that must do to your ego.
Yeah, exactly. And you think it's going to take off. And
Yeah, you think this is the one. We're finally going to get some traction here. I'm going to be competing with all these other leading ladies
Right,
for roles, and
right.
it just doesn't happen. Her final film at MGM was the Red Skelton domestic comedy The Show Off from 1946, which also starred Marilyn Maxwell and Marjorie Main. White loved to tell a funny story about working with the legendary Marjorie Main, and as she tells the story, and this is a quote, "I remember one time Red went up to the eccentric Marjorie Main, who was taking rather large pills. Red said to Marjorie, who was a real character, 'Lordy, Marjorie, the last time I saw someone taking a pill that big, he won the Kentucky Derby.'"
Oh my God. My mom used to call big pills horse pills.
Horse pills, yes.
So when you had to take like calcium or something that's really big and you're like, oh, you got to take that horse pill.
But I'm sure Miss Main did not appreciate it.
Oh, well, I'm sure not, but I'm curious what kind of pills they were.
I know. What were you taking, Marjorie?
Main. Well, she's now looking for a place to go. She's done with MGM. And before we get to what happens next in her career, let's share with our listeners this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz.
And the pop quiz question today, and it's about one of her movies that we're going to talk about in the second half. And it's probably her most well-known movie. Jacqueline White almost didn't get to be in the film noir classic The Narrow Margin because of Howard Hughes. Why did Howard Hughes almost sabotage this?
Oh, I can just imagine about 6 reasons right now. None of them are good. All right, we'll be right back with the answer to that and more about Jacqueline White after this.
Steve and Ann will be right back, but first another stop on the Hollywood tour. We mentioned that Jacqueline White attended Beverly Hills High School before going on to UCLA. Well, did you know that Beverly Hills High School on Moreno Drive has been the starting point for some of Hollywood's most memorable names, both in classic films and all the way into today? The list is impressive, from the musical magic of Disney composers the Sherman Brothers to the silver screen charm of Jackie Cooper. Add in the timeless wit of Betty White and the Technicolor glow of Rhonda Fleming. BHHS has nurtured talent that shaped classic cinema, and visionary filmmaker Roger Corman and TV heartthrob Richard Chamberlain. It's a school whose alumni helped define Hollywood from the 1930s and beyond. And now back to Steve and Ann from Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking about the great Jacqueline White, who's our star of the month for November. Before we get further into her films, her career, all that good stuff, we're going to give a shout out to our listener of the week. And this week, we are honoring Albert Anderson from Edinburgh, Scotland. We really appreciate your messages and all the support you've given us, Albert. Thank you so much.
Albert, I love that you live in Scotland. Thank you so much for listening.
We've gone international, folks.
Yes, we are definitely international. Well, we left off where the career that Jacqueline White had hoped to have at MGM was just not happening, right? So she knew she was going nowhere there at MGM. So she set her sights on finding a new studio, and RKO fit the bill. Using all the footage from the dozens of screen tests she shot at MGM, and how smart is
lady.
she?
Yes.
She was able to show her talent and versatility to good advantage. So RKO signed her to a contract and immediately cast her in a leading role in the family drama Banjo, 1947. In this film, she plays the wealthy and snobbish aunt. Do you say aunt or aunt?
You know, that is such a good question because, of course, growing up a Southern boy, we said aunt.
Is it aunt in this app?
But
Okay.
I've since changed a little bit, and now I think I say aunt. I think
Okay.
I've done a full 180.
All right.
What do you say?
I grew up saying aunt.
Aunt.
Yeah,
Okay.
but,
That's regional, I think.
Yeah, but my mom and dad's sisters, we never had to call them aunt or we always got to call them by their first names.
Oh, that's nice.
I know, kind of nice.
Well, I had lots of aunts or aunts because my dad's brothers all married many, many, many times. So there was always a new aunt to get to know.
Oh, gosh, that's funny. All right, well, anyway, back to
We
Jacqueline
digress.
White. Yes, we digress. So she's in this film, Banjo, and she's playing kind of a fun part, the snobbish aunt of an orphaned young girl, Sharon Moffat, who, along with her dog, Banjo,
I was hoping that Banjo was the dog.
Yeah, right. Banjo comes to live with her. And then another leading role followed that in the thriller Seven Keys to Baldpate, 1947, opposite Philip Terry.
No, at RKO, her parts were actually getting bigger and more substantial. Her next film is one that would probably help define her career in the Edward Dmytryk directed film Crossfire. And it starred the holy trinity of Roberts, I like to say. Robert Mitchum, Robert Ryan, and Robert Young. And they played soldiers involved in the murder of a Jewish man played by Sam Levine. You know, the film, it's a very important one. It's one of the very first films to tackle the rise of anti-Semitism in America. And White plays the estranged wife of one of the men wrongly accused of the murder. And White's, her warmth, her gentleness, they're used to such great advantage in this movie. The film also starred Gloria Graham, and it was a huge box office and critical success, becoming RKO's biggest moneymaker of 1947.
Wow.
It was also nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture.
Well, I bet Howard Hughes was happy that she was cast in that.
Yeah, and I'm sure MGM was thinking, wow, maybe we should have done something with her while we had her.
Jacqueline White followed this up with supporting roles in Night Song, 1947, with Dana Andrews and Merle Oberon. Next up after that was her first big Western. I can see her doing Westerns.
She looks like a good Western gal.
Yeah, she's in the big-budgeted Return of the Bad Men, 1948. She has a second female lead playing the sister of leading lady Anne Jeffries. The male stars of the film were Randolph Scott and Robert Ryan.
Love them both.
Love them both, too. About Scott, White once told an interviewer, Randolph Scott, such a gentleman, so nice to be around. I was excited to be cast in it. We had a lot of good conversations on the set, but when it was time to go home, he went to his house and I went to mine. We never socialized together.
Is that a polite way of saying we didn't have sex?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We didn't date.
I know we didn't date.
Yeah.
We didn't go out. I know. Well, you know, in White's next film, it was the crime drama Mystery in Mexico, 1948. She got the opportunity to be a true blue leading lady. She starred opposite William Lundigan, and she really shines in this lovely and very sympathetic role of a murdered man's sister who helps try to solve the crime.
Right. Around this time, White was invited to a cocktail party. This is a pivotal cocktail party,
Oh, it
right?
changes everything.
So she didn't drink. She was a teetotaler.
Not a boozer.
Yep. She found herself in the kitchen looking for a non-alcoholic beverage. And there she encountered a handsome man sitting on the sink, bored and sipping on a soft drink. He didn't drink either. So according to White, the man took one look at her and said, "Hello, beautiful. Who are you?"
And that line worked.
Yes, it did. The man was Bruce Anderson, a Stanford graduate from a well-to-do Long Beach family. Well, sparks flew, and the two spent the rest of the evening enraptured in conversation. A date was planned for the next night, and the next night, and the next. And after a whirlwind romance, the two were married on November 12th, 1948.
Nice.
Just 6 years after she started with MGM.
Yeah, a lot of big changes in her life. Well, White returned to filmmaking, but her heart just wasn't in it. She was dreaming of setting up a home with her new husband rather than being on a film set. And after appearing as Tim Holt's leading lady in the Western Riders on the Range from 1950 and appearing in a supporting role in the drama The Capture, also 1950, with Lou Ayres and Teresa Wright, she and Anderson left Hollywood for Casper, Wyoming, where Anderson had started an oil business. So content on leaving Hollywood behind and starting a family, White returned to Hollywood to be closer to her family for the birth of her first child, Neil. While recovering, she met up with some friends for lunch at the RKO commissary, and she was spotted there by director Richard Fleischer and producer Stanley Rubin, who had just been looking for the perfect girl for the next project. Well, as soon as they saw Jacqueline, they knew she was the one. It actually took some convincing because she wasn't so keen on getting back to Hollywood and back to a career, but they soon lured her out of early retirement for one last movie, and what a movie it was.
It's a perfect movie if you're going to end your career on a movie. End it on this one, right?
Exactly. And of course, I'm talking about The Narrow Margin, which I think is the movie she's best known for. It is a stunning thriller that takes place almost entirely on a train moving across the United States. The story centers around a gruff police detective played by Charles McGraw, who has to escort this reluctant gangster's widow played by the exquisite Marie Windsor. And you need to see this movie just to see Marie Windsor tear up the screen.
Phenomenal.
Well, she has to go back and testify against the mob in a trial to Los Angeles. And of course, Charles McGraw has to safely get her there. However, things kind of heat up when the mobsters board the train, and they're going to make sure the widow does not testify. So
there's something about a film on a train.
Yes.
And this is so effective. It just keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Edge of your seat. And even the remake they did with Gene Hackman and Ann Archer was really good.
Yeah.
Because they stayed so close to the actual original screenplay.
Right.
Well, it's just a great movie. And it was, it was Jacqueline White's swan song. And what a way to go out. Like you said, it's just a masterpiece, and her performance is exquisite.
And White plays a woman whom the detective meets on the train and who the mobsters mistake for the widow. And we're not going to give it away.
The twist at the end.
The twist at the end is like, what?
It will blow your mind. Because if anybody sees it coming, you're a liar.
Yeah, it's epic. It's epic.
After The Narrow Margin, White returned to her very quiet life in Wyoming. She and Anderson eventually had 4 more children, and they settled in the oil town of Houston, Texas. Bruce Anderson passed away in 2001. Now, while none of Jacqueline White's children followed her footsteps into show business, they are intrigued by their mother's former life. As White explained to an interview once, "In recent times, my children have gotten interested in my career. One son even found a place that sells movie posters and bought quite a few. They are now hanging on display. Occasionally, there will be a Jacqueline White night around here." "My life today is so different. The picture days I considered a wonderful experience I had. I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was my other life."
Well, White still lives in Houston and began making appearances at film festivals across the country. In 2013, she appeared at the annual TCM Classic Film Festival.
I wish I had gone to see her in that one. Yes.
That would have been so wonderful. I love that she had her film career. She was so passionate about that as a young girl. But I also love that she was passionate about her family and her children. And she's right. She did get to have 2 lives.
Yeah. How beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that.
Happy birthday, Jacqueline.
Yeah, what a great story and what a great actress to feature today.
Yes. Let's remind our listeners of this week's Hollywood Pop Quiz.
Well, the pop quiz question was that Jacqueline White almost didn't get to appear in her most famous film, The Narrow Margin, because of Howard Hughes. Why was that?
It has to be something about her physically or something, right?
Well, he just was...
He was such a guy.
I know, he was really unhappy with the movie, and he kept calling in the actors for reshoots and to add additional scenes. And he even at one point contemplated scratching the entire movie and reshooting it from page one with bigger stars, Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell. Fortunately, he changed his mind, but his tinkering with the film delayed its release until 1952.
That is a long time, and what a tragedy that would be if he had scrapped it.
I know, because Charles McGraw, Marie Windsor, Jacqueline White, they're all perfect in this movie.
And, maybe Robert Mitchum could have made that work, but,
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for spending this time with us. We would love it if you would follow us on social media. Our handle is @FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign, and you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can watch the podcast on YouTube. If you do that, give us a thumbs up and subscribe.
And we love to hear from you. Please keep those emails coming. You can email us at info@FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com.
That's this week's view.
From Beneath the Hollywood Sign.
You've been listening to From Beneath the Hollywood Sign with Steve Cubine and Ann McNamara, the podcast that celebrates amazing stories of Tinseltown from its golden era. Join us next week for another episode and learn something else about Hollywood you probably never knew. Take a moment and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review, and tell your friends about us too. It'll help grow the podcast. Visit Steve's website at FromBeneathTheHollywoodSign.com. The executive producers are Steve Cubine and Nan McNamara. Executive producer and post-production supervisor Lindsay Schnebley. Associate producer and researcher John Price Ritchie. This podcast is part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. Visit airwavemedia.com to listen and subscribe to their other fine shows like The Box of Oddities and The Shallow End with Schnebley and Toth. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. That's a wrap.